Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the biggest, the baddest, the most hotly anticipated event, second only to the reinvented Alaska Bunny Boot. It's time for Dark Winter Nights, True Stories from Alaska. And to get things started, please welcome to the stage North Star Ballet.
Hello, Fairbanks. Welcome to Dark Winter Nights. My name is Brittany Carnes, and I'll be our host for this evening. Before we get too much further, let's do another round of applause for the ballet. And let's see what they've brought us. It says, please join me for tea and gingerbread cookies at my home in the land of the sweets, Saturday, December 7th at 2 p.m. Love, Mother Ginger. All right. I was trying to figure out if North Star Ballet is the furthest north ballet academy in the US. And they said, well, it depends if you count like other dance, but I think if we say, okay, there's other like dance groups that do jazz and tap and things, but they're the only ballet school that I could find this far in the US. So I'm gonna give it to them. I think that means they join an illustrious list of furthest north things like Harley-Davidson Outpost, Alcoholics Anonymous, furthest north Alcoholics Anonymous, and Denny's, R.I.P. Oh. Who here's been to the Nutcracker before? And has anyone here actually danced in the Nutcracker? So something I didn't know and I just learned is the Fairbanks North Star Ballet version of the Nutcracker, they invite kids in the community to come and audition even if they've never done any dance before, even if they've never taken a class at the ballet, and they will cast them. And they said in 37 years, they've never not cast a kid, and this year they have a record-breaking 101 kids. I have it on authority that there are a suspicious number of rats. And the Rat King might win this year, so the only way to know will be to go and see. So do you know who will not be dancing around on point anytime soon? It's me. I broke my ankle this summer. And now that you know that, I hope you'll appreciate these heels even more. So almost exactly 5 months ago to the day, I've never thought a lot about if it would be a good idea to break an ankle or not, but now I'm gonna tell you, I don't recommend it, and if you're gonna go for it, break the left one, because if you break the right one, you can't drive, and it's a real bummer. I think we actually have a little bit of a broken ankle club going on tonight. It turns out one of our longest time volunteers, Flora, has a broken ankle. One of our former storytellers, Jessica, who's here tonight, has a broken ankle. Anyone else out there broken tonight? All right. I have extra empathy now for the broken. And I will tell you, I spent a lot of time this summer thinking about how miraculous, like, just walking is. Like, we're all walking around on these little toothpicks. I can't believe we don't break them more. So when you break an ankle or get injured, inevitably people start telling you their injury stories. So I've now heard a lot. I feel like the most classic way to break an ankle is stepping off the curb wrong, or going down the stairs wrong, or I've heard a number now of like putting on your underwear in the morning and tripping stories. But at least I feel like in those scenarios you can be mad at the universe. The universe did this to you. I have only myself to blame. I was paragliding in Hatcher Pass and landed poorly. So basically the story was that it was a beautiful day, and actually the wind was really great for flying, and I had a number of really good flights. And then around 8:30, because this was like high June, the sun went behind the peaks and the wind died down and the windsocks were doing this. And I could have so easily known better and just not gone. But it was nice. So there were a lot of other paragliders out there. And someone said, hey, if anyone wants to go for a last run, we'll drive down and pick you up, which is a great offer because usually if you paraglide, you have to hike back up at the end. And now I know about the myth of the last run. And you don't go on the last run. And also, potentially, I could have known better because as I was getting ready and kind of being like, I don't know if I feel it, but I don't know, I can't pass up the car. My parachute fell out, and we packed it all back up, but maybe that was a sign I could have paid attention to. But anyway, I launched, and then for whatever reason, coming into land, it was a flat field. It's not like I whacked into a cliff. I just couldn't. I had pulled my brakes as hard as I could pull them, and I couldn't slow down. And it was just like, there's nothing you can do about it. And I thought, boy, I hope I don't break an ankle. And immediately went, wow, I'm pretty sure that's what I just did. And out in the field, there's not a lot you can do about it. So I kind of went, yep, that's either sprained or broken. And I packed up my gear and I started crawling out. And fortunately, eventually, the people who said, we'll drive down and get you, noticed, like, hey, someone's missing. And they came and found me and helped me get out of there. So that was pretty awesome. So I ended up having to have surgery. I now have a plate in one side and pins in the other. And at my first surgery appointment, the surgeon said, it's too swollen to operate. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go home, you're gonna sit on your butt. You're gonna put your foot above heart level. You are not gonna take it down unless you go to the bathroom. And when you come back next week, if you've been good, I'll know. And if you've been bad, I'll know. It was just like, okay, surgery, Santa. So I did exactly that. I had surgery. About 2 more weeks of foot above heart level, 4 more weeks of being in a boot. Actually, I've got that off. At any rate, lots and lots of time on crutches and boots this summer. So I had a lot of time to sit and think and look forward to some good stories. But I think the reason I'm telling this story really is even though I had a lot of hiking plans and I would have liked to go to Chitna and I would have liked to go hunting, and essentially I pretty much tanked the summer, I also had so many people help me. And that includes old ladies with canes who kept asking how they could help me. And I was like, oh my God. And that includes people at Fred Meyer who kept offering to go get me a cart or carry my basket. It really even started just there in the field. I had 2 fellow Alaskan paragliders help me figure out how to navigate getting my car down from the pass to the emergency room. A family friend from Fairbanks flew to Anchorage. Another of my dad's friends picked that person up, drove him up to Palmer to get me, and drove me back. I had people come visit me post-surgery when I couldn't move. They brought me books and snacks and gifts. I had my childhood neighborhood parents come and pick me up for dinner multiple times. I had my parents and other friends who took me to Music in the Garden, friends who took me to Gold Panthers games, friends who figured out that they could rent a drive-up cabin in Donnelly Creek Rec area, took me there, and then took me to fancy dinner at the lodge. I had friends who picked me up and took me to folk school classes. They took me to the FDA plays. I had a fellow Dark Winter Nights board member who came and watered my garden for me. And then maybe the peak highlight, and don't tell if any of you are ortho people, I apologize, but friends who came and picked me up and wrapped my leg in multiple garbage bags and about 10 layers of tape and rode me down the Chena. So it wasn't the summer I planned, but actually, how lucky are we to live in such a wonderful state and in such a wonderful community where people will help you even if they've never met you. And just also there's so much cool stuff going on. I usually try to be gone on the weekends, and I did so many cool things just staying here in Fairbanks. So I didn't expect that to make me a little emotional, but let's enjoy tonight. Thanks. So let's enjoy an evening of great stories and great Fairbanks and Alaska community. Who's ready? All right. So we have a great show tonight. It begins in just a minute with me stopping talking, all of you silencing your phones. Here's how the show works. Who's never been here before? Ooh, we got a couple new ones. Okay, so each show we have a different prompt. You'll find it in your program. It is indeed inspired by the broken ankle. The question is, what's the most ridiculous way you've hurt yourself? We'll read some of those on the stage throughout the evening. So when you see the ushers walking by with baskets, drop yours in the basket, and they'll bring it back to us backstage. And then we also have one wild card story that we have not pre-planned and we have not pre-heard, and it could be you. So if you have a great story, we'd love to hear it. Write your name down. Here are the rules. It has to be true. It has to have happened to you. It has to take place in Alaska. We'd love if it was 12 minutes or less. And you can't volunteer someone else. I have spent the last month terrorizing my significant other by promising to call him up tonight. He says he will turn around and leave. So, all right, hand those in between storytellers. We'll pick that one out at intermission. If you have a great story and you're just not feeling it tonight, still put on there that you would like to submit a story, and we will definitely get in contact with you. There's some other good stuff on there too, like our newsletter, and some of you may know if you get our newsletter, you get a little bit of a heads up when tickets go on sale. And then if you're interested in helping make the show, we're always looking for more volunteers and more helpers. We will have about a 20-minute intermission later with Hutchinson High School Health Occupation Students of America serving potatoes and a number of other cool things. All right, got it? Okay, it's time for our first storyteller. So I think all of us love a good score, right? Whether that's a great shopping deal, a really rad rock that you find on the beach, or if you're me, it's an extension cord on the side of the highway that I will pull over for. Yeah. But what happens when you make a huge score and you start to have second thoughts about it? Please welcome our first storyteller to the stage to tell us a story called Fossil Outlaws, Jamy May Wagner.
Let the bass kick.
Hi there. This does feel a little strange, I gotta tell you. The only other times I've ever walked out on stage in Fairbanks to music playing, I was performing burlesque. So for those of you who I tricked into coming tonight, I apologize. This is a different sort of dark winter night program. And I do apologize for that. And the only thing morally a little questionable I may be doing tonight is attempting to tell an ancient story in 12 to 15 minutes. So let's get to it, okay? My entry into this very old story started just a few years ago in 2019, July of 2019. And that summer, my husband and I had just moved back from Texas after a couple of years of traumatic events leading up to my mother's passing that April in 2019. So we were finally back in our little off-grid cabin in the woods of Denali Borough. And while we were gone, our buddy Bobby had become quite an avid rafter. And he calls, one day and says, "Hey, y'all want to go rafting this weekend?" And we had never been rafting, and we needed nature therapy like nobody's business, and we needed some good old Alaska outdoor time. So, of course, we were in. Well, the plan was to raft about 30 river miles from Healy, Alaska, to the Rex Bridge. For those of you who don't know, that is the big green bridge to the interior around mile 276 of the Parks Highway. And so we do. We drop in there in Healy near GVEA, and we begin our float, and we're floating past Usabelli coal mine, which happens to be where my husband works, so it was cool to see that property from a different vantage point. And we're floating on, and we come to this section of these really beautiful rock and sand formations. And so Bobby adjusts the raft so that we're floating sideways and all looking forward. I discovered I like hanging my legs over the front of the raft and just holding onto the rope. And we're just looking at these incredible features and ooh and ah. And now I'm not saying that I smoked marijuana that day. Just saying, if one had, one might have really found this quite the spectacle on top of the normal beauty of nature. And we come around, we finish kind of seeing these formations, we come around a curve in the river, and there's a rocky ravine there, and it's not very wide really, but quite tall. And we all grow silent for a couple of seconds. And I'm sitting in the front, and we start to mutter, was that a frickin' mammoth tusk? And I don't know. I mean, maybe, Bobby, get over. So like a madman, he starts rowing, trying to get over to the right-hand side of the river. But by the time he can actually get there, there's these very tall embankments and steep, and there was just really nowhere to land the boat. So we keep floating. This is very early. We have several hours left, and there's this banter, of course, going on, right? Is it even possible that that was actually a mammoth tusk? I mean, come on, that had to have been a petrified log or something all twisted up. Why would we have been the first to see it anyway? Surely people raft this, and Bobby says, this is a pretty tame section of river. Most people kind of want some rapids, and we're just floating. And then we contemplate the fact that summer, there had been a lot of rain. It was a record rain year, and there had been quite a number of earthquakes take place in the interior. And I don't know, maybe that could have unearthed this thing. So anyway, it kind of fades into quiet contemplation. And I'm sure Bobby's back there rowing, thinking, if that's a tusk, we're going to be billionaires. And my husband, Dale is his name, the ever optimist, thinking, no way in hell that's a mammoth tusk, right? And me up front, my hippy-dippy spiritual nature, thinking, is it possible that was my answer, the answer to my healing that I needed, and telling me that we're in the right place at the right time. This is just how things had to be. And so we finish that trip, and we get out at the Rex Bridge, and we pull the boat up, and we all look at one another. We got to go back. Famous last words, right? We got to go back now. And so we adjust the vehicles, of course, so that we can get the raft back where it needs to be in Healy. And in the meantime, we devise a new plan for exit out of the river. And we decide that we could cut the trip in half, still see this thing that we think's a tusk, and get out sooner. At a little place called Ferry, Alaska, in Denali Borough, made famous by their annual 4th of July mooning of the passenger trains. And excellent, beautiful beachy spot, and be a great place to get out of the river. So we drop back in at GVEA. We start floating. We pass Usabella. We pass these formations. Ooh, ah. We're about to come around that curve, and so Bobby, boy, like a master, right? He's rowing to get us over to that rocky ravine in time. And he does. And we pull up there, and I slip off the front with the anchor rope, and I give it a tug. And I got to tell you, I'm barely even sure that boat's actually out of the water before I'm hightailing it up that ravine, because I can't wait to see what this thing is. And, of course, a couple seconds later, the guys are behind me. And there we are, staring at a 6-foot mammoth tusk, root to tip. Okay, now I'll tell you, this is where, if this were burlesque, this story could get a little naughty. I touched just the tip. And I do this, and I think, man, that's really light. That's weird. And I let my hand just run all the way down this thing, and I get to the root, and I kind of try to give it a lift, and that damn thing is heavy. I'm like, holy cow. And we've noticed there's a few shards there. So, there's just no question. That thing's going with us. We start picking up shards and stuffing them in our pocket, and we get the tusk down to the raft and get it in. And then we think, so by this point, by the way, it's about midnight, okay? And we think, well, we wouldn't want all these people on the river or there in Ferry to see our treasure. So what do any good Alaskans do? We covered it with a blue tarp. We didn't bother to strap it in, which becomes important later, but we did have it covered. So off we go, right? We head down the river, floating to Ferry. Now, when you're passing through Ferry as a checkpoint and just floating through, it really doesn't seem to be any significant changes in the water. But what we noticed as we needed to get left and out at Ferry was that all of a sudden that water really does pick up a pace. And that pace is headed directly for the concrete column that holds up the railroad. Few seconds, notice Bobby says, brace yourselves. And we do. We brace ourselves, and bam, we slam into that concrete column. and it sort of bounces us off, and we're sort of in the middle there, and all these things, of course, happen so quickly. Within seconds, decisions have to be made. And you can see that it's sort of shallow there in the center of the Nenana River, but it's not over to the left. It's deep. So at the last second, my husband jumps out of the raft into the Nenana River in his flip-flops. All right, so he's holding on to the raft, and I'm dumbfounded and just, wow, we just hit that thing. And, anyway, so I listened to them devise a plan to get us where we need to be. And I hear that my husband is going to both push and leap into the raft. Bobby's going to row, and we're going to get over there. And I'm thinking, I have to do something to help out with this. So I think, okay, well, if that does happen the way they've said, that's going to kind of swing me around to a rocky spot that's right there on the edge. And I think, well, okay, I can just jump off and plant us there. And so it happens. He pushes. Now, let me say something real quick here. My husband is big and strong and tall, but he is not agile. So I'm thinking about this push, leap, and flip-flop thing all happening. But anyway, it's okay. So he does. He pushes. He leaps. We swing around. Bobby's rowing, and it puts me over there by the rocks. So I slide off, and I plant my best asset right there on the rocks, rope around my waist, and I hold on for dear life. And few seconds into this, we're stopped. They realize we're stopped. So quickly, my husband gets on his real shoes. He jumps out, and we spend about the next hour working our way through the back downstream, through the brush, to get back to the spot where we actually needed to be. Mosquitoes, of course, at this point, it's about 2 a.m, and they're like, yes, fresh, hot blood. It was nutty. Anyway, we get there. We pull the boat out. The 3 of us are safe, and there's our treasure still in the raft. And so we load that thing up, and we go to our cabins, and it's about 4 a.m. by the time we get home, and adrenaline pumping, and we take a little nap, and then I wake up the next morning, and I think, I wonder if we should have taken that thing out of its, natural habitat. I don't know. It's not like going hunting and you check the regs or whatever, so I didn't know the rules. Well, let me tell you what. From the moment we put that tusk in the raft, we were the mammoth tusk outlaws of Denali Borough. But here's the deal. We make terrible criminals. What was the first thing I did? I called the state. After being transferred 2 or 3 times, I say, to some guy who maybe knows, hypothetically, if, some folks were out rafting a river in Alaska and they came across a mammoth tusk, what should they do with that thing? And he says, well, hypothetically, ma'am, they should follow the law, and the law is that if it's on private lands and you own those lands or you have permission, then it's yours to keep. However, if it's on preserved lands, of course, or if it's on state land, which is most of the edges of the river in Alaska, you should leave it alone. I said, well, thank you, sir. You have a great day. And so we at that point were misdemeanor criminals, but if we tried to sell it and get the $1 billion Bobby wanted for it, we were going to be felons. And we all quickly decided we were all way too pretty to go to prison. Way too pretty for prison. So we didn't do that. Instead, it found its home in our back room, kind of a little Arctic entry at the back of our cabin where it was dark and cool, and we thought would preserve that tusk for a while. And Bobby would come over and see it, and of course we all had shards, and we told anyone who would listen. Again, terrible criminals. I took it to Tatlanika gift shop in my van. I opened the door, and I'm like showing it to people, telling everybody. Well, fast forward from that summer to Christmas of 2020. That was a Christmas where it snowed and snowed and snowed. And we had, you remember, we had made about 200 tamales for Christmas and 250 sugar cookies. And it snowed so much that only a couple of people were even able to stop by. And then overnight, it started to rain. And it rained and it rained and it rained. Well, we wake up the morning after Christmas to drip, drip, drip. We've all been there. I'm like, oh, shit. So I run to the back room, and you know it, right? The drip's happening right down the center of that mammoth tusk. So we rush to get that thing out of there, and it comes up to our main part of our cabin and becomes the Christmas centerpiece under our dining room table, and all these tamales and cookies and our battery-operated Christmas lights. And it was just a lovely thing, but we did notice something once we had it up there in the light for a while. We noticed it was really changing, and it was getting darker and starting to splinter a bit more. And so we decided it was time for that tusk to find a really good home. So we made some inquiries, and it turned out that the Museum of the North was very interested in it. I mean, they have other tusks, of course, but very few that are actually full root to tip, and almost none that they know the exact GPS coordinates of where it was found. So, hey, they wanted it. And then just a little time coincidentally after that, they began their Adopt a Mammoth program that is still going on today. Any of you can do it. And for $350, you can adopt a piece of mammoth that they have so that it can get radiocarbon dated. Well, we did that. We adopted our tusk, and we just recently found out that tusk is over 50,000 years old. I tell you what, I still can't believe it. I think of all the things that had to happen, right? My mother's timing of her passing, our coming back from Texas, our buddy becoming a rafter, the torrential rains, the earth had to shake, for goodness sakes, for us three goofballs to find that beautiful ancient piece of our Earth's history. So there you go. It's the Denali Burrow Mammoth Tusk Outlaws. How about we welcome them out, my fellow outlaws, and our now borrowed contraband. Yeah. So you two will have your chance. They have given us permission to put this out at Intermission. You are welcome to even touch it. Just don't pick off shards, please, and enjoy a little bit of history. Thank you very much.
Jamy May Wagner. Does it sort of blow your mind that mammoths had two of those? Like, I think they said it's 150 pounds. It takes 3 people to carry it. Also, I do want to say thank you to the Museum of the North and several people who were involved in letting us borrow it for this show. So, Pat Druckenmiller, Betsy Sturm, Aylin Peterson, and quite a few others. So thank you. All right, let's read some of these memories. Most ridiculous way you've hurt yourself. It says, 1st grade, I was run over by an outhouse in the Chattanooga outhouse races and broke my leg. That is pretty awesome. Someone says, I pinched my finger in the giant nutcracker in the lobby. And I was chasing my high school crush down the mountain, hit a mogul, and tore my ACL. That love left a scar. All right. Our next storyteller has a name that's probably nearly synonymous in the interior community with boats, snow machines, and ATVs. You can imagine he's probably seen about absolutely every way you could possibly destroy a power sport vehicle, and I suspect he's seen a lot of creative ways people have tried to fix them. Maybe it will make us all feel a little better to hear a story about when things went horribly wrong for him. Let's invite to the stage Craig Compeau telling a story, Midway to Hell.
All right. Hey, everybody. All right. So as a local businessman, you know, I don't like to badmouth any other businesses, whether it be like a dingy roadside restaurant or whatever, but the name of my story is Midway to Hell, so that could be a clue. So it was September 2006. A buddy of mine, Bryce, and I were heading down to Tok because another buddy of ours, Kenny Broker, had tipped over a moose on the Tok River the night before. He had field dressed most of it, but he got dark. He had to get back, so he called us. Hey, I need some help finishing this up. So Bryce and I get in the truck. And we head on down towards Tok. So it's 6 o'clock at night, we're leaving. We're heading to Tok, that's what, 3-4 hours. So we have, we're starving, right? So we said, let's just get an order to go from Midway. Whoops, I shouldn't have said that. From a dingy, so we get an order to go, we get in it, we take off to Tok. I inhale my burger and fries, eat most of his fries. And we get on down to Tok, and we made it 9 o'clock or whatever, and had a couple of beers, stayed at the Tok Lodge. We figured get up early the next day, and we'll go help Kenny. I had my boat behind me, and we're going to go down there and help Kenny get this moose, off the river. It's horrible weather, raining, miserable. Anyway, we get up the next morning, had a Bloody Mary, and get in the boat. And the trail to this part of the river is not even a road. You go down a gravel road, then you go literally through the woods about 3 miles. Our fenders, we're banging fenders off the trees. We're going over roots and stumps. It's just like you'd expect to see in a dense forest. And so anyway, as we're going, I'm not feeling so good. I'm just kind of feeling queasy a little bit, and I'm thinking, if I was a bar owner in Tok, I'd probably buy the cheapest vodka I could to put in my Bloody Marys, right? The market demands in that area. Anyway, so anyway, we're going down there. I don't feel so good, but we get to where we put the boat in the river, and with me are my buddy Kenny Broker, who's 360 pounds, his two boys, average 6'8", and my buddy Bryce, who's directly behind me in the boat. And so we put the boat in the water, starting to feel worse. I was starting to sweat and get a little clammy. And anyway, we get the boat in the water. We're going down the river. It's rainy. It's early. It's only like 7:30 in the morning or whatever. It's just barely light. We're getting down the river. Up the river. We got to go, 8 miles, 10 miles or something. So we're heading on down the river, and I'm thinking to myself, I shouldn't be able to hear my stomach over a 200-horse inboard jet motor. There's something wrong there, right? So anyway, I just think, okay, all right. So we're coming on down the river. I'm just feeling horrible. I keep looking back at Bryce, and he doesn't look so good either. But anyway, the other guys look fine, right? So anyway, we're getting down the river, and all of a sudden, we're still at hunting season, so we're thinking, hey, another moose would be nice. Let's tip over another moose. There's 5, 6 of us. We can use the meat. So anyway, it's rainy. It's ugly outside. Bryce sees what he thinks is a moose on the upper right bank, and he stands up. And I have to stop here because my rule in a boat, never chamber the rifle until you have a good, clean shot at the animal and the boat isn't moving, okay? My rule. I assumed everybody knew my rule. I've told it many times. Well, Bryce, it was raining, so he had his rifle upside down in his hands, and it's cold. His hands are probably shaking a little bit. Anyway, he stands up, and the rifle slips. He goes to grab it with his pinky, and a .338 hole goes right through the bottom of my boat. Bang! At the exact same time, every person in the boat yelled 3 words, the first 2 of which were, "What the?" So now we got a hole in the boat. It's raining. I'm sick as hell. And I'm driving in this early morning misty dawn as the boat is filling with water, and there's like way too many people in it already. So anyway, we continue down on the river, and Bryce mentions he's not feeling too good either. Like I give a shit. Really? Okay, Bryce. And I want to protect the names of the people in this story, although his full name is Bryce Allen Weaver. He lives on Fairbanks. Many of you probably know him. You can ask him about chambering up a rifle in a moving boat, okay? Anyway, so I'm feeling just horrible. I've only thrown up 5 times in my whole life. I got a wrought iron stomach, and I am ill. It would have killed any other human being, I'm sure. So the boat is filling with water, and we're getting closer to the kill site, and I tell the guys, look, when we get there, I'm just going to run that boat wide open onto the bank, or we're going to sink, because we had pulled the drain plug, trying to get the water out of the boat. It's not keeping up. It's just going too fast. So, and it's pouring ass rain. It's ugly out. So I drive this boat. I power it up onto the gravel bar, and I tell the guys, look, I'm not going to be much help on this one. I am not feeling good. So Bryce and we got out of the boat. He went off into the woods to try and get a little bit sick or whatever, and I curled up on a tarp in the mud there and just in a fetal position. Ugh, it was not pretty. And we just couldn't make ourselves feel better while they were finishing cutting up this moose. Well, we're thinking, well, the only thing we haven't tried is maybe we just need to eat something. So here's a tip for you guys. If you're feeling really nauseous, clammy, and shaken, fever-like, don't try Kippered King salmon. Don't do it. It didn't help at all. It didn't help. So anyway, we get the moose, we get it cut up, we get the rest of it, like I helped on that one. So they got the rest of the moose in the boat. We get the boat in the water, turn on a bilge pump, which wasn't doing much, take off, barely got on step. Now we got a chunk of moose in the boat. We got these big monster guys in the boat. We're going up there, and I'm just getting worse. I mean, it feels like razor blades and battery acid rolling around in my stomach. I am so ill. Oh, never felt like that. So we're getting up. We're going back up the river, and we literally start. It's a silty, dirty river, and it's pouring rain, and we're losing speed coming back, and so we have to drop off Kenny's 2 boys, the 6'8" and 6'9" guys. So we'll have to come back for you, and we take off. They were young and stupid. They said, okay. See you next year. Anyway, so we dropped them off on the bank, and we got back up on step, and we're racing for the river bank where the woods trail is and the boat trailer. So we get there, and so we get the boat on the trailer, and of course, the water's pouring out of it and everything. And in a moment of brilliance, Bryce came up with an idea that was perfect. And he took the shell casing that he shot, which is a tapered shell casing, crawled under the boat and hammered it into the hole. Now, it took me from 2006 until right now to use the word Bryce and brilliance in the same sentence. I never gave him credit for that until just now. All right. Anyway, so we're driving back through that root-infested trail. Kenny's driving the truck. I mean, my guts are on fire. I'm dizzy. I really thought, as Warbelows, can they fly me to Fairbanks? I got to go to the FMH. I need help here. We finally get back to the Toke Lodge, and Bryce is sick. I'm a mess. I'm an absolute mess. I'm sweating. I'm shaking. I just can't do anything. So we get back, and I just want to lay down in a bed. So I said, just gave him my credit card. I said, Bryce, get a room. I got to lay down. So go up and lay down in the bed. I'm just going to try and sleep this one off. I can't picture getting in a car for 4 hours. I can't even picture getting in an airplane. So I'm laying there. We both have a bed in the room. I go to bed, and I am so ill, and I'm just shaking and clammy. It's just as bad as you can imagine. And then about 3 to 4 hours later, I wake up. I feel calm. Everything's okay. I feel okay. I powered through it. And then I lifted the sheets. I'm going to leave this part to your imagination. But it is etched in my gray matter, and it will never leave. And when I lifted those sheets, I mean, I gagged, I pounced out of bed, I ran to the bathroom, I'm bent over, I'm driving the big white bus, and two violent and unfortunate things happened at the exact same time, involving both of my orifices. You could no longer recognize the floral pattern on the shower curtain. That's all I'm going to say. I'll stop right there. It was bad. Bryce is giggling in the next room. Now just imagine a semi-truck full of 5-gallon buckets of chili that turned upside down on a newly paved highway. I mean, you can't ever make that highway look the same again, right? So anyway, I did what any respectable business owner would do. I took a shower. I wrapped the shower curtain and the sheets up in a ball in the tub, and I laid a $100 bill on the sink counter. And I told Bryce, we need to get the hell out of here. So we looked down the hallway, scurried to our truck, and went back home. Now, you probably wish and hope that was the end of the story. It's just getting started here. So, a month or two later, I got this itching going on. I mean, it's bad. I can't sleep at night. I'm getting 2 hours of sleep, scratching myself till I bleed. There's something wrong. Well, so I go to different skin doctors and everything else. Oh, it's just eczema. No, I can't. I'm getting 2 hours of sleep a night for 4 years. I was horrible. I went outside, I went everywhere, and finally, a family friend said, hey, there's this Indian doctor on the radio in Bellevue, Washington, that can diagnose anything. So I am so desperate. I went right to AlaskaAirlines.com, and I booked my ticket to see this lady, thinking, I'm that desperate. I got to get this fixed. I can't live like this. I looked like I was 85 years old. It's horrible. Anyway, so I go down there, and I go in. The first thing they do is a skin prick test, right? They take the little samples. Turns out I'm allergic to two things: barley and the ink they use to produce in currency. So two of my favorite three things I'm allergic to, okay? All right. So they put me through that, and then the doctor, this Indian doctor, lays me, I'm getting my boxers, and I'm laying on a table, and I'm laying on my back, and she says, and I hear this music that you'd probably like hear at an elevator in New Delhi, this soft music playing, and all of a sudden she grabs my fist and starts moving it like it's a 5-speed sports car, and I hear what I think are it sounds like dice rolling in a wooden cup, right? So I crack one eye open, and she's got my left fist in her hand, and she's got a wooden cup with dice in the other hand. And at this point, I'm looking around for medical licenses in frames on the walls. I said, what the hell are you doing? She said, fear is in your stomach. Anxiety is in your spleen. And what she goes on, and I sat up and I said, I need to exit the property. I have to go. She goes, no, you have to finish this, right? So her assistant comes in and takes me downstairs where I meet a big German woman in a white This is true. I'm telling you. I'm not making this up. You couldn't make it up, right? There's a white German woman in a lab coat that looks just like Ernest Borgnine. Okay? So she lays me down next to what looks like a fish tank with current going through it. I'm from Fairbanks. I've never seen one of these things. I don't know what this is. And she says, "This is how we cleanse." I didn't know what cleanse meant. And she pulls up this tube and starts putting this lubricant on it. I go, what? What? What's cleanse? And why aren't there any fish in this tank? So she says, relax. And she does what she does for a living. And I felt like I was going to explode. I mean, on my eyes, everything's bulging out. I'm whimpering in pain. Stop! Please stop. And finally, she'd stop. And I'd feel my organs, go back to their original upright position, my internal organs. And then she did it again, and like 4 or 5 times. And I'm just like, finally, it's done. It's done. And so I look around for my pants, wallet, and dignity. I found 2 of them. And I said, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. So I bolt for the exit door, and I'm intercepted by the owner, the Indian doctor that she says, sit down. And she's got some clipboard with her, and she goes, I have no idea what is wrong with you. And I just spent $1,800, for services rear-endered, okay? Anyway, I bolt for the door, and she interrupts me, and she goes, no, sit down. She goes, I don't know what's wrong, but when you go back to Fairbanks, Alaska, when you're on an airplane, you need to count back 4.5 years, and you will figure out something very traumatic happened in your life, death in the family, whatever. I said, okay, all right, good, bye. My car is out here. So I get out in the car, I get on the airplane, I'm sitting back, counting back from 2011, whatever it was, back September 06. The French fries. It was the French fries at Midway Lodge. Yeah, Midway Lodge. So anyway, what happened then was a doctor came to town, unbelievable, diagnosed me, said, I take these, in 30 days, you'll be done, it'll be gone. I said, yeah, no disrespect. Been there, done that. It worked. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I owe a debt of gratitude to this woman. I told her, I really, after I got better, I said, I want to do something special for you. Could I pay off your mortgage, put your kids through college? I mean, it's a game changer when something that dramatic happens to you. And listen, that lady went over and above what she was supposed to do. Kind of like that little housekeeper in Toke. Thank you.
All right. Craig, we need to know if those 2 boys are still out on the river. All right. Someone send help. All right, some more ridiculous ways you've hurt yourself. We have broke my arm wrestling an 18-year-old boy. I'm a 26-year-old girl. I had a paper cut on my hand. I went duck hunting in Minto Flats, where I pulled pond vegetation out of the jet prop. My cut got infected, and I went septic. I spent a night in the hospital, but I got a limit of duck. Priorities. I went to knife I went to bed with a knife in my pocket. I woke up the next morning to my leg hurting with me wondering why it hurts. Lesson learned for the 3rd time. And I threw out my back bending over a jigsaw puzzle. I was only 33. All right, how many of us tonight have some kind of public-facing job, whether that's retail, food service, healthcare, some kind of public job? All right, so we all know that it takes not only some fortitude, but some real creativity sometimes to keep people happy and get through the day. Our next storyteller took creative problem solving to a whole new level. Help me invite Peggy Sullivan to the stage telling a story called Exorcism.
Well, good evening. A lot of you know that I was a Fairbanks police officer in my former life, and that was, thank you. That was nearly 19 years ago, so time flies. I spent most of my career working midnight shift with some swing shifts and occasionally a day shift thrown in. And it was on one of those very, very busy midnight shifts that I was asked to stay over and work day shift. It was so busy that night that I was not able to get a break for lunch. So I was really hungry. So my plan was to ask dispatch if I could get a break for lunch. Well, as it turns out, that day shift was just as busy as midnight shift had been. So I knew I was doomed to starve to death. But I thought, well, at some point during the day, I asked dispatch if I could please get a lunch break. And she said no. But she said, if you handle this next call, I'll do my best to get you a break. So I said, okay, what's the call? She said, well, we got a guy out there in the lobby. He says he's hearing voices in his head. I'm like, oh, well, tell me more. And he says, well, she said, all I know is that he has evil voices talking to him in his head. I said, okay, well, sounds like he's probably a good candidate for a 4th floor transport, which meant I'll scoop him up, bring him over to FMH on the 4th floor, which is the psych ward. And she said, or he might be a good candidate for an exorcism. And we both, we both chuckled about that one. So I went out to the lobby, and I met a young man out there wearing a baseball cap, and I escorted him into a little interview room right off the lobby. And we introduced ourselves to each other and sat down at the table. Now, for this story, I'm just going to call him Joe. So I said, hey, Joe, so why are you here at FPD? What's going on? And he said he was hearing voices, evil voices in his head. So I said, okay, tell me, what are those voices saying to you? And really, honestly, I thought he'd say that those voices were telling him to harm himself or harm others, which right there, I could scoop him up, bring him over to FMH, and I'd go to lunch. So he proceeded to tell me all of what the evil voices were telling him. And he had quite a list of things, and they were quite evil. I won't go into those, but he went on for a good 20 minutes or more. And when he stopped, I realized he never once said anything about those voices telling him to either harm himself or harm others. So I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to ask. So, Joe, are those voices telling you to hurt yourself? And he said, no. I said, are they telling you to hurt someone else? Again, it was a very flat no. So then I thought, well, okay, I'll just get right to the point. Hey, Joe, are those voices telling you to kill yourself? No. Are they telling you to kill someone else? No. By then, I can be honest, I was ready to harm him. My stomach had already eaten itself out and was really eyeballing my liver. So we sat there in silence for a while, and I looked at Joe, and his eyes were closed and his head was bent down. And I thought, how can I help him? What am I going to do? But my mind was empty, just like my belly. So I suddenly remembered what dispatch had said. So I looked at Joe. He still had his eyes closed and his head bent down. And I said, I am a Catholic, you know. And with that, his eyes popped open, his head came up, and he stared at me. And I said, okay. Well, I very kind of officially said, I could do an exorcism if you want. And his eyes got wider, and yes, he nodded his head yes. So I explained to him what I would do. I said I would stand up and stand behind him and gently put my hands on his head. So Joe immediately shut his eyes, bent his head, and took off his ball cap. So I went behind him and I placed my hands gently on his head, and I said some kind of mumbo-jumbo religious stuff. And then in my most authoritative police voice, I said, and I demand all of you evil voices in Joe's head, leave now and never come back. And I ended it with an amen. So I took my hands off his head, and Joe's eyes popped open, put his head up, put his baseball cap on. He stood straight up and walked right over to the door that led back out to the lobby. So I looked at him and I said, do you feel okay? He nodded his head okay. Yes, he did. And I said, do you hear any voices? And he shook his head no. So I walked over to him and I said, well, you're free to go. I opened the door. He walked out into the lobby, and I watched him walk out of the front doors of the police station and back into the Fairbanks community. And I got to go to lunch. But I had to come back that night to work midnight shift again. And those of you who've been around long enough probably remember Jimmy Lowe Sr. He was a great guy. He was our watch commander that night. And Jimmy always took the briefing book, and he would read out loud all the calls that happened during the day, so we all knew what was going on. And he's reading along, and all of a sudden what? You can't close a case by exorcism. You can't do that. And well, that brought my eyes open, and I laughed, and I said, well, that was my case. And he goes, well, you can't close a case by exorcism. I said, I didn't. And then I remembered that in that little interview room, there's a camera up above. So dispatch had been watching all along. All I know is I got to go to lunch. So Jimmy, we finished the briefing, and Jimmy was still muttering and sputtering about not being able to close a case by exorcism. So as he stomped out to go up and talk to dispatch, I went out to handle my first call of the night. And I can honestly tell you that the rest of my whole career, I never once had any more interactions with Joe. And I know that FPD never had any cases with him either. Amen. Thank you.
Peggy Sullivan. All right, I'm going to read a couple more of these. Most ridiculous ways you've hurt yourself. Kept a half sheet of drywall from falling, tweaked my back for 3 months, let the drywall fall. Drywall is cheaper than doctors. It was fall 2023. I managed to bear spray myself in the groin while dip netting near O'Brien Creek at Chittana. An hour of half-naked hilarity ensued as I tried to manage numb butt cheeks, capsaicin-coated genitals, and 24 red salmon. And I fell in love with a woman too good for me, and I lived with that scar for the past 40 years. All right, just a couple things before we go. I wanted to say thank you to our nonprofit parent organization, North Star Community Foundation. They have a new website, so they basically blanket several organizations for nonprofit status, including ours. And they are going to be wrapping Christmas presents at the Bentley Mall with Santa's helpers in December. So great cause, definitely check it out. I also want to thank our sponsor, In My Element, who has provided my wardrobe this evening. And the back is the best, so I gotta... Yeah, especially if you're a lady, you know that they take care of you in there and they're the best clothes. All right, it's time for a 20-minute break. There's potatoes being served from the Health Occupation Students of America from Hutchinson High School. There's a tusk you can touch. There's a nutcracker who can pinch your fingers, I guess. We have some merch, and please listen for the gong. That's how you know it's time to come back. We'll see you with 3 more stories, and if you are interested in audience storyteller, put your name in there. Coming around, and we're going to draw it shortly. Happy intermission. Hey, who are you guys?
So we're the Fairbanks Skatepark Coalition. Yeah, our mission is just to build skate spots and give places for people to ride and for young and old.
So you guys are a nonprofit, and you're part of the same nonprofit as Dark Winter Nights.
Yep.
Tell us what you guys, as a nonprofit, like to do or have done, or.
North Star Community Foundation is what we're part of. We work hard. So we've renovated the Fairbanks Skate Park just about 2 years ago. We raised. Thanks, yeah, that was a lot of work. It was like 10 years in the making. We raised a lot of money, had a lot of help from everybody from the Tony Hawk Foundation to the Borough and many, many, many others. And yeah, it's been a huge project from the community, and we want to continue to do that with all over the state. And any chance or opportunity we get, we want to build a spot.
I feel bad I didn't let you catch your breath.
Oh, no.
So, hey guys. All right. Woo! So I feel like you actually had bigger dreams for the stage tonight, and because of our insurance policy, we reined you in a bit. What would you have liked to have done?
We were working on a pyrotechnics ordeal and maybe a little water pit, and we had a couple ideas, bigger ramps, but that's all right. It was fun.
So you guys have Facebook, you have Instagram. I follow both. I feel like I see a lot of stuff that you're doing in the winter. Like, I kind of assume skateboarding is a summer thing, but you have a bunch of videos of doing winter stuff. What is that?
So it's snow skating. So it's skateboarding on the snow, and there's multiple genres of snow skating, but we can get use out of the skate park all year round. Tons of fun, and if you got that itch to skateboard, sometimes just jump on a snow skate, and it's a lot of fun.
So pre-ankle break, I snowboard, but you're like bound to the board. How are you guys skateboarding without bindings?
So there's a local manufacturer, Grip All Traction Products, that makes studded grip tape, and it's specifically for, not specifically, but it works great for snow skating. So it's studded grip tape that penetrates the ice and snow and provides grip, unlike traditional grip tapes. And it's got a lot of other uses as far as safety and marine applications and ATVs and gripalltraction.com.
So if someone here would like to get into skateboarding but doesn't know how do you get into this?
This is grip all right here.
Yeah, cool.
I guess first thing to do is not be afraid to fall would be the biggest thing, and learn how to fall. That's probably the most important lesson is learn how to fall. Just pick up a board at local skate shop and go down to the skate park in the summer and ride around. If you see somebody that's ripping, that looks like they know what they're doing, everybody's super friendly. Just ask them, hey, can you give me some pointers, or how do I push, or what's the right way, or everybody's, just get out and do it and take some slams.
All right. Anything else you want to say about the Skate Park Coalition or skateboarding?
Yeah, I'm just super thankful for all my buddies and everybody from that helped get the skate park going, and just everybody in the community that helped, and just tons of help if you're into it, support the Fairbanks Skate Park Coalition, and we want to continue doing projects. And if you have ideas, feel free to shout out through us Facebook or whatever, and
All right. So, before you go, do you guys have something for us?
Yes, I do.
Is it the audience storyteller name? Sweet. All right, thank you guys so much. Another hand for these guys. All Are we ready for an audience storyteller? Do we remember the rules? Has to be true, has to have happened to you, has to have happened in Alaska. So let's invite our audience storyteller, Eric Spitzer. So we'll give him a minute to get down here. While we're waiting, I want to show you my magic trick. Oh! So Rob Prince can swallow swords and juggle. I can do this. Yeah. All right. Does anyone see Eric? We'll give him another minute. All right. Woo! I can actually balance on this leg much better from the crutches. I've gotten really good at this one. All right.
Hey, Fairbanks. I'm Eric Spitzer, and I'm a state trooper. Unfortunately, what the story I'm about to tell you is true. It happened in Alaska. It happened to me, and I'm going to walk you through it. But in order to tell the story, I've got to provide some context. Background, a little bit of background. 12 years old, I blew myself up with a Lego house bomb that I made out of black powder. I was babysitting my younger brother and sister, and my dad got me a Thompson Center muzzle loader, flintlock, and I had better plans for that 4F and 2F black powder. Anyway, my younger brother, Gus, he's like, Eric, think twice. And I'm like, no, this is good. This is going to be great. I light this Lego house. It blew up. I didn't think, anyway, long story, but so I run into the house, and I had to jump in the shower. My hair had actually caught on fire. It was still smoking. I burned all the, like, my eyelashes, eyebrows, burned all over the place. And I jumped into the shower to kind of cool this off, and now the whole house smelled like what do you call it, like rotten eggs and gunpowder, burnt hair. So I jump out of the shower. This is back in like 19, and I'm like, dial O for operator. This is Eric Spitzer. I'm at 1987 Flint Hill Road, Compeau, Pennsylvania, 18036. I just blew myself up. Send an ambulance. And they're like, what? I just blew myself up with a Lego house bomb. Send an ambulance. So they send the ambulance out there. And I remember in the ambulance, I'm on my way, and I'm like, I don't believe I just blew myself up. God, so embarrassing, right? Anyway, fast forward, so I did like 10 years in the Marine Corps, and I was really super, my whole life I've been interested in explosives and, I mean, the Marine Corps, they were like, hey, you can we're gonna pay you to throw grenades and shoot machine guns. I mean, just bad people, and I'm like, hey, this is the greatest job in the world. Anyway, so I get out of the Marine Corps, and I joined the Alaska State Troopers like 25 years ago. And going through the process, becoming a trooper, I eventually find myself at the Criminal Intelligence Center, 2019. Many of you remember this. COVID-19 was just coming about, and working at the Criminal Intelligence Center, I was very much familiar with this bat flu that's coming, and I'm kind of a prepper. I don't know, are any of you? But I was already prepped. I had done all the preparations I needed prior to the COVID-19 happening. And then I thought to myself, you know, when there's something like that, a pandemic that comes along, there's gonna be, you know, zombies, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was I thought to myself, what sells most during hard times? Like alcohol and tobacco. Well, I don't smoke. I wish I'd have known about the toilet paper thing. So what I did was I went down to Costco, and I don't know if you've ever seen those 1995 bottles of whiskey. I call them peg legs because they get that wooden stopper in there. You know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm the reason why you're only allowed to buy 2 of them. I actually bought a whole pallet of it. I spent $5,000 on Costco whiskey. This is not made up. And then I went out to Guerrilla Fireworks, and I spent the other $2,000 on fireworks. I spent so much on fireworks that the guy's like, hey, pull around back. And he gave me the good stuff. Well, in hindsight, I regret that he gave me the good stuff because this was Christmas Eve, 2019, and we lived on a lake at the time, and I had it all set up there, and my daughters, my wife, and I were out there ice skating. We had the lights up, and the poles up, and you could see the lights, and it was like a Christmas card or something, And we came in, and Dad got into that pallet of whiskey. It's just about midnight. And we were like, oh, hey, girls, Dad's going to light off some fireworks. And they're like, no, Dad, no, don't do that. You'll scare. I'm not lying to you. My 9-year-old daughter says to me, Dad, think twice. And I said, what could happen? And she said, you're going to scare Santa and the reindeer, and they won't come to our house. So I took the Goliath mortar, and I went out onto the porch, and you got to kind of hold it. You hold it so that when you shoot it, it clears the eaves of the roof. So I'm out there, and I'm like, all right, put this down here. Thing down the tube, the big carpet tube thing. And then I get the mortar and I put the mortar in there and I'm like, this thing is not fitting right. I'm like, got it in there real good. So I pick it up and the whole family's there, looking out the window. What's he doing? Oh, he's about to light it. So I light this thing and I'm holding it like this there. Kind of like this. And the fuse burns down, and it goes down into the tube, and I'm like, all right, this thing should have gone off by now. And all of a sudden, I got this sixth sense of something bad's about to happen. So I went to throw it. So I throw this mortar tube, this is the one that I had to pull around back to get from the guy. It was this thing was about the size of a coconut that you stick down. Anyway, this thing, what had happened was it was bad. It was a bad firework, and it didn't have the launch to shoot it out of the tube. That part I bypassed, and it's a good thing I let go of it because it exploded in the tube. The tube split down the side. And then that UHMW piece on the bottom, that square piece of hard plastic, that hit me in the face at about 2,000 feet per second. And it fractured, well, anyway. So as this happens, this thing, it's like, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing, all I can hear is my heartbeat, and everything else is like, I can't see anything, but I know I'm bleeding bad, real bad. And there is blood, I could see a steady stream of blood coming down my face. It basically cut my face open down here, peeled this back, and had the teeth exposed. And there's blood. I don't want to gross everybody out, but there's like a solid, steady stream of blood going down. And being a trooper, I know you got to get a tourniquet on this thing. And I'm like, I can't do that. So I quick take off my Skidoo sweatshirt, and I like jam it against my face. I can't see, but I can find myself back inside. I'm like my wife, I call her Big Ange. I'm like, Big Ange, get me to the hospital. And my daughter's like, worst Christmas ever, Dad. So there's like a stream of blood out the house. We jump, it's like 1:45. We jump in the truck. It's like snowstorm from hell. My wife's taking me to Matsu Regional Hospital because this happened down in the valley. Anyway, I get there, and I'd just been working undercover, and I had like a big beard. I looked like a Sasquatch. And I was buying stolen guns in the Fred Meyer parking lot from some thieves. And I go in there, and I'm pretty liquored up. My wife drove, you know, obviously. I could see a little bit. Long story short, they're like, hey, you got to get in a helicopter. We're going to fly you to Anchorage. I'm like, I am not getting in I'm not getting in a helicopter in a snowstorm and going to Anchorage. Like, this is bad, but it's not that bad. They put quick clot on my face, which you're not supposed to do, just for the record. In case anyone's got a facial one, don't put quick clot on it. Anyway, they sewed me up. The quick clot killed a bunch of flesh in there. Anyway, I get there in an ambulance. They hit me with morphine, and then I'm like, you know. So they tell me, hey, sir, the doctor said, first of all, you should buy a lottery ticket because you should not be able to see out of that eye or hear out of that ear. I don't know why I'm just lucky, I guess. So the doctor says, I've fractured your orbital bone and your sinuses, and he's like, normally we would put plates in there, but everything is broken so fine that there's nothing to bolt together. It's like eggshell. So anyway, there's a happy ending here. He says, you're gonna have a lot of surgeries and you're gonna be in the hospital for a while. So after 2 weeks in the hospital, and we got all kinds of infections. I'll spare you that. But the part of the story is this doctor, first emergency doctor comes in, does that thing. Then I meet the plastic surgeon. I'm asking the plastic surgeon, hey, doc, like, you know, how bad's this gonna, you know, the moneymaker, you know? You know, what's up? I mean, I look like the Elephant Man, seriously, it was horrible. Stitches, all kinds of stuff, infections. He says, listen, don't you worry. When we're done, you're gonna look like Brad Pitt. So, because of this thing, I already have like my own crowd. I can hear cheering all the time. Even right now, it's going. It feels like I have my own audience cheering for me all the time. So now I'm getting cheered for all the time, and I'm gonna look like Brad Pitt. This is great. So we get done with like surgery number 1, surgery number 2, surgery number 3. Man, I'm still not looking like Brad Pitt. So I said to the doc, I'm like, hey doc, what's up with, you know, the Brad Pitt thing? Remember that part? And he's like, oh, didn't you ever see Benjamin Buttons? I'm like, come on, man. You're killing me. I thought you were talking about me, Joe Black, or something. Anyway, when this thing happened to me, I want you to know I had a feeling of inner peace. I mean, we're all laughing right now and all this stuff, but I had this feeling of inner peace and this feeling of like, oh no, this is how this ends. You know, this is how this ends. But I will tell you that as I was laying there, I had lost a lot of blood. And I was thinking to myself, you know, this is it. And I will tell you that I was peaceful in my transition to, I was like getting, you know, thinking this is it, you know, I'm fading out. I had lost a lot of blood. And there was a certain peace that came to me from that. And I was okay with like, all right, my wife's gonna take care of the kids. She has this, I guess this is how it's gonna go, you know? And I'll tell you, I tell the story, although we had a lot of laughs as we're telling it, the purpose of the story is I felt as though when I came out of this thing, I had another chance at another life. You know what I'm saying? So that I didn't get around to drinking all that whiskey, and I got rid of them fireworks, and I focused on my family and what was important, and I realized how close I came to losing everything. And if you're out there and you're having a hard time, you're struggling with things and alcoholism or drugs or whatever's got hooks into you, you know, there's help out there. And if you can put that aside, I got an intervention. And I think it kind of saved my life. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I don't want to get all deep on it with that, but I feel like I got kind of reborn after that incident and a better feeling of love for my family, my wife, my kids, and to be grateful for that. And with that being said, speaking of being grateful, I'm sorry I have to end with this, but the Fairbanks Community Food Bank is having their holiday food drive. Now, we have this holiday food drive between the Alaska State Troopers, North Pole PD, Fairbanks PD, and we have a competition of who can raise the most. What I'm telling you is this thing stops on Monday at 2 o'clock. So if before Monday at 2 o'clock you come by the State Trooper post, we'll take checks made out to the food bank, or you know, if you want to drop off some food or whatever there. What a great cause it is. I just wanted to plug them real quick. And for that, that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.
Spitzer. It's crazy to me how we do this wild card every show and we've never had a bad story. Like, I think you guys are all walking around out there practicing but not submitting your stories, just waiting for this. That was so good. We don't theme our shows, but I do feel like we've accidentally ended up between the ankle talk and the injury talk and the ballet dancers and the skateboarders, and boy, we've got a lot of injury talk tonight. The skateboarders said we were jinxing them. Speaking of, I'll read a few more of these. Most ridiculous ways you've hurt yourself. I was on a field exercise with the Army. The porta potty was out of toilet paper. I used paper from my Ride in the Rain notebook and gave myself a paper cut in a very uncomfortable place. Turns out what you use matters. In first grade, during homework, when I got frustrated, I slammed my hand down and stabbed myself with a pencil. A piece of lead is still in my hand. While teaching my sons, I think this is fishing. While we're teaching my sons to cast with maximum thrust and distance, I sunk the rustiest, dullest pixie hook into my arm. It worked. They have not hooked themselves. And racing my brothers on bicycles, I kept looking back, and as I was in the lead, I crashed into a parked car, flew over the car. All right, so our next storyteller is telling a story set in Coldfoot. So it's an area, we all live in sort of rural Alaska, but we all know there's a lot of much more rural Alaska. So her story takes place in an area with no cell service, it's genuinely cold, and there's just not a lot of help around. Please help me welcome to the stage our next storyteller. Oh, Patty Christian.
Hello. Alrighty, so shortly after my third son was born, right here in Fairbanks, some friends of ours from Talkeetna gave us 7 of their awesome sled dogs. And at that time, as Brittany just mentioned, we were living up in the Bricks Range, about 5 miles north of Coldfoot in an area called Marion Creek. And not that big of a population, but a great place to raise kids and run dogs. So, and the boys used to come with me in the sled, particularly when they got a little bit older and when I got a little bit better at it, because that was my first dog team. So one November, we had a friend up visiting, and he and my husband Peter wanted to go out to the Koyukuk River to check out the ice conditions and see, you know, if maybe it would be good for running dogs on. So the Koyukuk is about 3 miles from our house by snow machine. So they decided to go out, and they wanted to bring the other 2 older boys with them who were 8 and 6 at the time. So, and I didn't want to miss out on the fun, so I said, I'll join you guys, but I'll bring the dogs, and I'll take Orion in the sled with me. So off those 4 go in our 2 snow machines, and I started getting Orion ready. He was just not quite 4, he was turning 4 in about 2 months. And so I got him in the red sled, and with the thermarest and a sleeping bag, so he's all cozy in there. Then I started hooking up the dogs. And so the dog mushers in here, they usually, you know, will know that you want to put your lead dog out first so they can keep everything nice and tight. But in this particular situation, I wanted to hook up the lead dog last because he's kind of barky and he just got everybody all riled up. So I hooked up all 6 dogs, and then I got Dieter, and I put him out front. And then as, so we're ready to go, basically. So as I'm walking back towards the sled, as I mentioned, it was November, so we hadn't gotten a whole lot of snow yet. I'm walking back to the sled, and I tripped over an exposed root. And boom, I'm down on the ground. And the dogs must have seen that as a sign like, hey, oh, it's time to go. So they kind of lunged forward, and then that snow hook that was in the ground, not very good snow, popped. So I'm on the ground, and before I know it, the dogs, the sled, Orion, they're gone. And I'm like, Orion, jump! But he can't hear me because he's all cozy in his sled. So down the trail they go, and I'm running after, and they disappear down over the lip of the sledding hill. And that trail then curves to the left immediately and kind of twists and turns its way down to Marion Creek. And I'm, running. They're long gone. Orion's gone. Dog's gone. I'm running after. When you get to the creek, there's a left or right choice. Up to that point in the season, my trail had only gone to the left. So, because it was early, and that trail goes up the creek, comes back down through the woods, back to the house. There's also, to go to the right, is where Peter went with the boys, breaking a new trail downriver, down the creek towards the river. So me, with my expert tracking skills, I'm like looking, which way did they go, which way did they go? And I made the decision, they went left. It was kind of the momentum. They think they're going left, so they're gonna go left up the creek, and they're gonna be on this closed loop trail. So I start running after them, and I'm like, that's stupid, because I want them to be running towards me, not me running after them. I'm gonna get back long after they will. So I turn around. Now I'm being smart. So I'm running back up the trail, back up towards the house, because I got to pass the house to get onto that other trail. And as I'm running, getting close to the house, I'm thinking, I am so much faster on skis, so I'm going to go into the house, get my boots on, and ski this trail. So I run into the house in the Arctic entry. I'm looking around for my boots, and I can't find them anywhere. What the heck? Where are my boots? They're always here. And unbeknownst to me, because we were having a visitor, my husband had cleaned up the Arctic entry with our family of 5's many boots, and put my ski boots, in our bedroom closet, which is a place I would never look in a million years. So I don't have time to think about that. I gotta go run that trail backwards. I want them to be running towards me. So I'm running down the trail. My brain is starting to work overtime, and my heart also working overtime, and I think, oh my God, I read those tracks wrong. They totally went to the right. They followed that snow machine track because, of course, that's the new shiny trail, and that's the way they're going to want to go. So, all right, back towards the house. So Marion Creek goes underneath the Dalton Highway, and there's the Marion Creek Bridge. So I can drive there. So I go, and I go start the car, or I go to try to start our truck, and it's dead. So okay. So I got another option. I have my husband Peter's work truck, which I'm actually not supposed to drive, but okay, I'm going to drive it. And so I go run out to the generator shed where it's parked near, and I go to start that one. And it's like 10 below, so it's like, I don't want to start. But it thankfully started. No time to warm it up. Sorry for you people who've got worry about that thing. So I drive about the mile it takes to get to the Marion Creek Bridge. This is the Dalton Highway in November. There's nobody out. It's totally quiet. So I park right in the middle of the bridge. And I go and I look over the side of the bridge at the tracks that go underneath the bridge. And I assess again with my tracking skills that no dogs have passed this way. That is only a snow machine track for sure. So I'm now, I've kind of done all the things, and I'm like thinking, where are they? They could have gone left, they could have gone right, but apparently they didn't go either way. And Orion is out there somewhere. It's now been, I don't know how long, but I have a runaway dog team and a little boy who's 4 years old, and they're all alone out there. So I cross to the other side of the bridge, towards the Koyukuk River, and I just call out into the night, "Peter, I need you." But there's no response. There's no snow machine noises. There's nothing. So I'm alone. Orion's alone. I got to figure this out. So back to the house I go, and the only thing I can do is run that loop trail again. Somewhere they might be out there. So I toss my parka, this parka right here. I toss that onto the ground, and I start running that 3-mile loop trail. I'm about halfway on that trail, wearing these clunky sorels, and I'm actually kind of half walking, half running. My heart's not that good. So I mean, it is, but at that moment, it wasn't. And I'm like, I don't know. I have to just believe that it's going to be okay. So by the time I get back, I'm almost coming back up to the river, up to the creek, at the end of the creek, going up to the trail towards home, and I hear a snow machine coming. And I kind of step off the trail a little. I see the lights coming through the trees, and it's Peter. He cuts the engine. He's coming from the direction of home. He cuts the engine. He says, "I got him." So it was that moment that I finally lost it. And I just broke down. So up to the house, much joy and elation. Orion is there. Everybody's okay. And then I get to hear Orion's and Peter's side of the story. So the dogs did go to the right. And that snow hook that had been bouncing along all along finally did its job, and it hooked a willow on the creek bed. And the dogs stopped. Yay, dogs. So Orion tells me he's kind of a chatty boy. He didn't get any response from me, and so he turns around, and there's no mom. And so he's looking around, and still, nowhere to be seen. So he gets out of the sled, and he walked up the gang line all the way, petting the dogs as he went. He's, not quite 4, a little boy. walking along in the woods in the middle all by himself. And so pet the dogs, got all the way up to Dieter, came back down the other side of the line, petting the dogs as he went. Got back to the sled, and on the side of the sled, on the stanchion, I always kept a nice sharp knife, just, for emergencies, if I need to cut a line or something like that. And I always told the boys, I got 3 boys, so please don't mess with my knife, like just leave it there, don't mess with it. I need it to be there, when I need it to be there. So anyway, Orion admitted later that he did, in fact, mess with the knife. And so, and maybe he thought it was some kind of emergency situation, and this is what you do. And no magic came out of that knife. It didn't solve the problem, so we put it back in the sheath. And eventually ended up just, it's getting cold, it's 10 below. I have no idea how much time has passed. It's November in the Arctic, our days are short. So we got back into the sled, and I had one of our loose puppies with us that day. He was 6 months old. So that puppy jumped in the sled bag with Orion. And he said they just hunkered down in there. And Orion felt comforted by the fact that the dogs were there. So thankfully, he was actually not alone, or didn't feel alone. So eventually, he hears a snow machine coming. And as Peter says, he rounded the corner of the creek. Just as an aside, if I had maybe stopped at the corner of the bridge, I might have seen Orion, because it might have been at just the right angle because the creek curved around. Anyway, so Peter comes around the corner, and the reflective lights of the harnesses are showing in the snow machine lights, and he sees the dog's eyes, and he's like, oh, wow, here's Patty. Kind of a little late, it's kind of dark, and they're finally coming out to join us. And he pulls up, and there's Orion all by himself, and he's like, Orion, where's Mom? I don't know. So immediately, Peter's thinking, I'm hurt somewhere. I'm unconscious or worse out there. So gets Orion on the sled with his brother, and then our friend Nels unhooks the dogs, and so they could just run home with us, or run home with them. I wasn't there. And back at home, Orion sees my parka laying on the ground, and he says, she was wearing that. And so, which everybody felt was very smart of him to say, because what that meant was I had come back to the house, and I wasn't out there laying somewhere. So now I'm the one who is lost. And so Peter jumps back on the snow machine, and then he comes down the trail, and that's where he finds me, just about coming up the trail. So it took me a really long time to tell anybody this story, because it was not my best mom moment. And so you better believe that I learned after that how to use a quick release or a slip knot on a tree so that my dogs would not leave without me, or much, especially if I had a boy in the sled. And as we humans do for places, we name places that have meaning to us. We, as a family, always called the direction that the dogs went that day, we called it Orion's Way. Thank you.
Patty Christian. She just hugged me and said, I didn't cry. All right, a few more of these. Dumbest ways you've ever hurt yourself. I was racing to pee, and as I leaned over to pull my pants down, I hit my face on a freestanding towel rack and broke my nose. Nothing quite like being pantsless, bloody, and still having to pee. I feel like there's a recurring theme in some of these. I blew on my cat's stomach when she wasn't looking, and she panicked and kicked off my face. When the checker at the grocery saw my scratched face and the duck on my Fish and Wildlife Service uniform patch, she said, "Oh, you must have been attacked by a vicious duck." Back in 2020, before the pandemic, I signed up for the 2020 Yukon Quest 300. At the time, I was living and training in Coldfoot. The start of the race was 55 below. I wore bunny boots and left my mucklucks with my dad. Anyways, my bunny boots failed and I ended up freezing 3 toes black. I got so much crap doing that, especially being the guy that lives in Coldfoot. All right, we have one more story, but before we do that, I do want to do just a few thank yous. So some of our sponsors or our affiliate groups, so Midnight Sun Media and Editing, In My Element, the Herring Auditorium staff, including Deirdre, Josh Bennett and Sound Reinforcement Specialists, and their crew tonight, who's Baron, and I have the name in my phone, I'll find it. North Star Community Foundation, KUAC, Lori Neufeld, Papa John's, Safeway, the Alaska Bowl Company for lending us this beautiful chair, Scott Houghton from 30 Below Woodworks, Kay Hackney, all of the ballet volunteers, so Judy Sanchez, James Cooper, Kevin Huo, Amanda Metzfield, Max Hamft, Danny Andrade, Heather Pritchard, I'm sorry, these are our volunteers. Michael Martins, Molly Simons, Joey Rutledge, Julia Cheeseman, Autumn Shelton, Paula Ruckhouse, Kimbo Mayer, Diane Lyon, and Micah Frantes. The UF Museum of the North, now the ballet folks, John Peralt, Amy Zahai, Ella Kramer, Norman Shelburne, Cortland Weaver, Scott Calder, Jen Armstrong, Elizabeth Parr, Jen Danielson, Wendy Walker, Aaron Gleason, our entire skateboard park coalition crew. I have some of their names. So Joshua Poe, Malachi Poe, Hunter McLean, Orion Middlestat, Nick Murlo, and Alex Jenigan. And then, actually, I'll come to that later. So let's go ahead and introduce our final storyteller. He's practiced law in Fairbanks for over 40 years. And I'm pretty sure if you practice law in a town this size for that long, you probably see clients everywhere. In fact, last night, just at rehearsal, he said, "Wow, I've got 2 clients on stage right now." Please help me welcome to the stage Bill Satterberg telling a story, Free Willy.
People want to know how I got injured. I had my left shoulder replaced here, and somebody said, "How'd you hurt it?" And I said, "Years of self-abuse." Anyway, before, can we just have the house lights up for just a second, please, if you don't mind? Okay, great. I'm looking out there. Yep, got a lot of past clients, and some present clients, some future clients. You also got a bunch of clients that live in a gated community just down the street. They couldn't make it tonight, but if you folks could just stand there for a second, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Smile. Gotta get the wife. Okay, now I'll get down to business. Hang on here. I started out practicing law back in 1976, and after a short period of time with the state, I ended up doing criminal defense work. And it's kind of an interesting area because you meet some real remarkable people. They have a lot to say and do, and sometimes you learn a lot about stuff in this town. But probably one of the best ones I ever had was I had a client named Tommy Hale. He was a member of a little-known fraternal men's organization called the Hells Angels. And I represented them for quite some period of time. Pretty nice group of folks now. Unfortunately, they're all gone. They kind of moved on. TMB, that was a medical term called too many birthdays. So we don't really have that club in town anymore to speak of. But at that time, when I was representing Tommy, he used to say that he was into body piercing. In fact, he served 32 years in prison for stabbing some guy to death. I didn't handle that case, but on the other hand, one case that I did handle one time was Tommy was, the one thing about the troopers, I'm kind of surrounded by cops tonight, so I'm a little nervous, is that what happened is that there's a certain rivalry that's always gone on between the club, if you will, and the troopers, as well as defense attorneys. And so what happens, they pulled Tommy over on the Parks Highway one time. A gentleman named, a trooper named Brian Wassman pulled Tommy over. And as they were searching Tommy, it was sort of like that scene out of Lethal Weapon, where we had Mel Gibson and Renee Zellweger just dropping guns and everything you could think of on the floor as they're searching Tommy. They came out, they had a beer box full of weapons that this kid had on him. I mean, it had lots of things, but one thing that Tommy had, which was a very unique item, was something called a Kubaton. Now, you folks may be asking yourself, what is a Kubaton? And we'll see it here in a little bit. I'll suspect what a Kubaton is a karate fighting device. Now, I didn't know what a Kubaton was either at the time. Yeah, that's the boys' model. That's the blue one. We'll talk about the other color later. But what happens, that's a Kubaton. But what happened is Tommy was busted for having prohibited metal knuckles. I'm going to give you folks a little legal advice here. You can own a submachine gun in Alaska. You can own a switchblade. You can own ninja knives or whatever, butterfly knives. You can own just about anything. But prohibited under Alaska law are prohibited metal knuckles. You cannot own prohibited metal knuckles. And so what happened is Trooper Wassman had busted Tommy, and one of the counts was possession of prohibited metal knuckles. And being a nice, young, smart attorney, I thought, hey, we can bring a motion to dismiss because that Kubaton can't possibly be a pair of metal knuckles. I'll let you know later I was somewhat wrong on that. Anyway, so what had happened at the time is I had my secretary, personal assistant at the time, Laura, go down to the Bentley Mall, and there was a little kiosk in the Bentley Mall that was selling Kubatons. And so Laura went down and she decided, I'm going to get Bill. I said, I want something that looks non-threatening. Because Tommy's it was about that long and it was made out of iron. It was black. It had big sharp points on it. It was an ugly looking piece of equipment. And he used to wear it around his neck. So Laura came back with another one, and I think we got it there in a second. It was a pink one, okay? It was pink. That's the girls' model, okay? And so Laura brings us in, and that's cool. We'll go to trial with the jury. So we go to court. First of all, it was a dismissal motion before Judge Funk, Ray Funk. And at the time, I go in, and I bring Tommy over. And I tell the officer at the time, look, you're going to probably have a situation here. Tommy's kind of on the bad side of the troopers. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets arrested. We come walking through the door into the court building. And back then, what they would do is they would take your file, if you were an attorney, and they would just kind of heft it a little bit, make sure you didn't have a gun in it, and then they let you come through with the metal detector. So that's what I did. I walked through the metal detector, and what I didn't realize at the time was that there was going to be some issues up in the courthouse a little later. We get into Judge Funk's courtroom 201, and the first thing that happens is there's 3 state troopers sitting there. They're all sitting in the back with their arms folded. I go, this is interesting. Tommy and I walk in. They turn to Tommy and say, Mr. Hale, put your hands against the wall, please. Puts his hands up. They search him, go up and down and everything. And I go, what are you guys doing? We have a right to search him. We have a right to search him, and we're searching him. I said, well, hell, we just went through the metal detector. You guys are getting awful badge heavy, which is a term Turples don't like to hear. Right, Eric? Anyway. Or Peggy. Anyway, so what happens is that they search Tommy. We sit down and think, this thing's already starting to go upside down pretty quick. They get on the stand, and Judge Funk goes, okay, Mr. Satterberg, and I'm making my arguments. And the first thing that happens is Trooper Wassman's on the stand. And I said, Trooper Wassman, it was a Kubaton. You know what a Kubaton is? He goes, no, I don't know what a Kubaton is. And I open up the file, and in the file is this envelope, and it says evidence. And I didn't realize that Laura had put the Kubaton we had bought into the file in an envelope. I thought, well, this is really good, man. I'm going to grab this one and go. So I said, well, here, let me show you. So I reach in, and I open up the envelope, and I pull the little pink thing out. There's a reason that's in plastic we'll talk about later. Anyway, and I go walking up, and I hand it to Judge Funk, to the trooper. I say, Trooper, what is it? And Funk's going, what's a Kubaton? What's a Kubaton? So instead of giving it to the trooper, I give it to Judge Funk. And he's looking at it. And about then, the opposing counsel, a lady named Dana Merriman, finds Tommy's one in her evidence books, if you will. And so she comes up and says, Your Honor, may I approach? Okay, fine, that's how we do that. She goes up and she hands Tommy's to the judge. So now Judge Funk has got the pink thing, and he's got Tommy's there in his hands. And the question is, well, Mr. Satterberg, what's the difference between yours and your client's? Well, Your Honor, my client's is long and black, and mine's short and pink, but they do the same thing. Right then, things really started to go upside down. I thought it was a pretty good joke. I mean, coffee was spit halfway from the clerk's desk across the courtroom. And so I think, okay, we're fine. So then Judge Funk says, well, Trooper, what do you think about this? And he holds it and he says, Your Honor, I think it's a pair of prohibited metal knuckles, says the perfect magic words. So I think this is getting fun. So the trooper says, Judge Funk says, can I see that again, please? No, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I am seizing it. The trooper goes, you're seizing it. So Mr. Satterberg, you may inquire. Trooper, you're seizing it. What do you mean you're seizing it? As evidence. I'm going, oh, shit. Okay, that's a legal term, by the way. I use it a lot. Okay, got a couple others, too. So anyway, we sit there, and I get done with the cross-examination, and at the end of it, the question's put to the, I say, Your Honor, I move to dismiss. He says, well, Mr. Satterberg, it's going to be a jury question. I'm not going to rule on whether it's a prohibited metal knuckles or not. It's a jury question. They can decide. Okay, fine. So ding, ding, everybody gets up and walks out. I'm getting ready to leave, and Wassman comes up to me. He goes, Mr. Satterberg? Yes, sir. Do you have any other weapons on you? I didn't have any weapons on me to begin with. Well, he said, do you have any other weapons on you? I said, no, I told you, I don't have any. About then, Funk opens up the door, comes in and goes, I don't know what these troopers are going to do to you, Mr. Satterberg, but don't ever bring anything like that into my courtroom again. Thanks, Judge, appreciate that. He goes back out the door. And so we're still kind of debating with the troopers. Now we got these three troopers standing around me. Tommy's standing over the corner, just kind of looking at me and go, this is interesting. And then so the door opens again. Funk comes in again, same speech. I don't know what these troopers are doing to you or what they're going to do, but don't ever bring it back again. I'm just warning him. Oh, yes, Your Honor, I understand. So what happens is that the third time he comes in, I think this is it. I'm going down hard. So, Funk leaves again. Wassman says, okay, Mr. Satterberg, put your hands behind your back. You know, you're under arrest. I shouldn't have done that, by the way. Anyway, and he hauls me out the door. So I'm sitting there and tell Tommy, call my office, tell him I'm going to be late getting back. Now, I had actually thought about spending the night in jail because I had a lot of clients I had to meet that day anyway. And I figured, and what the hell, I mean, I see what the food's like and a few things like that, maybe even get a tattoo. So right across the knuckles, you know, law. Okay. Could never spell. So anyway, we're on the way down to the jail, right? I'm getting hauled out of the courthouse, and people are looking at me. I got my handcuffs behind my back. I'm getting hauled out. I'm laughing about this in a way, but I'm kind of pissed. But I'm, okay, I can handle this, I think. We're on our way down to the jail. Now, one thing you folks may not know is that it's legal in Alaska to tape record somebody without their knowledge as long as one person to the conversation knows that. And we also know that most troopers and city police officers will tape record. Normally, the machine doesn't break unless something goes wrong. But the point is, they will tape record. So I know I'm being tape recorded, and I know that, and Wassman and I had some stuff in the past between us, so it wasn't like a loving relationship. And he's driving down, and I'm going, Trooper Wassman, are you still messing around with that lady down at the Elks? What's your wife think about this thing, man? God, I can't believe this. I mean, every time your reputation is terrible. I mean, I can't believe you're doing this stuff. And I can see his knuckles are turning white. The steering wheel's beginning to bend. I thought, Satterberg, we may not be going to the jail if you keep this up. I'm not a good swimmer. I didn't feel like going to the Tanana River. So anyway, they pull us in the jail. We go walking in, and we go walking through the door, and the jailers are in hysterics. What the hell are you doing here? And I'm laughing by then. I'm thinking, well, what can you say? So I'm inside there, and they're trying to book me, and Wassman's going, got to figure out what to charge you with. And I said, well, there's misconduct involving a weapon in the 4th degree, which is a Class A misdemeanor. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, and there's another one here. I said, no, there's another one you can charge me with, too. I said, give me the book. So we're sitting there and I'm flopping through the book. And I said, you can charge me with this, too. And he looks at me, Bill, he called me Bill, by the way. Why do you want to be charged with 2 crimes? I said, simple. I'm going to use a Visa card to bail out Alaska Airlines miles. And he goes, that does it. I'm only going to give you 1 count. Okay, so I get my picture taken, I get my handprints taken, everything else. The jailers are laughing. I was thinking about spending the night there, but I had a client. Pardon me, take a quick here. I had a client that was coming in at 6 o'clock with $2,000, and back then that meant a lot to me. So I decided I'd get released, so I used my Visa card and I bailed out. And then Wassman comes to me and goes, you want a ride back? No, thank you, I don't need a ride back. I'll get myself back if you don't mind. And so he takes off. The office comes and they pick me up, and I go home. Well, the next day, we have a big headline that comes out on the newspaper. Local attorney arrested for carrying prohibited metal knuckles. And there I am with my big smiling face. Is it up there yet? Well, it will be shortly. Anyway, I'm there with my big smiling face and local attorney arrested. You know, I belong downtown Rotary. That's what all us rednecks do. You know, not quite. But the point is that they're laughing about it. You know, one of our members has been busted. He actually gave me an award for that. And so I'm sitting there, and that night I'm a little upset the next day. So the newspaper articles come back out. Yeah, there it is. It's actually in the office bathroom if you folks want to come over and see it. right next to the surveillance camera we have in there. Anyway. Okay, I want to make sure the staff works. Okay, so what happens is that I go to the Elks that night. Now, the Elks is kind of a local hangout for some of you folks, and we can't show the secret sign. But I'm down there, and I'm talking to a friend of mine, and now I'm starting to get a little pissed. I'm saying, no, I don't like this. This is ridiculous. I can't believe this guy arrested me in the courtroom for arguing that something wasn't a weapon. And he goes, well, he says, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, I think I'm going to sue him. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to sue him, which, of course, everybody expects to hear that from a lawyer. And he looks at me and he goes, no, he says, you can't do that. You got to make it funny. And I said, like what? Free the Fairbanks 1? Because back then they had the Fairbanks 8, which were the ones that were down in Laughlin and got in a lot of trouble down there, clients. But this, I said, what, free the Fairbanks 1? And he goes, no, Willy, you got to come up with a better slogan. And we looked at each other at the same time and go, free Willy. So what happens is I go that night, it's still early, so I take off, there you go, and I go down to the local shirt shop in the Bentley Mall right next to the kiosk that sold the illegal weapon. And I have about 3 of these shirts made. Now, these things are expensive, folks, and I'm kind of a cheap guy. We're talking like $25. So the next night, I come walking into the Elks, recognizing that the bartender of the Elks has got a relationship going with Brian, right? But she doesn't know that I know, because Fairbanks is a small town, as was pointed out. So I come walking in, I'm wearing my Free Willy sweatshirt and her t-shirt, and I come out and I sit at the bar. She looks at me, she goes, wow, that is so cool. I go, yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? She goes, where'd you get it? I said, I had it made. Next thing she says is, do you have any more? Well, I did. I had this one, I had a large, and I had an extra large. And I said, why, would you want one? And she goes, yeah, I really would. Okay, so I go back out in the car, and I come in with the extra large t-shirt. Now, here's an audience participation question. Where's a woman going to wear an extra large t-shirt? Okay, so the next day I come walking in, and Lisa now is no longer in a happy mood. She is scrubbing the bar with her bar rag. Smoke and steam is coming off the rag. And I walk in, I sit up at the bar. Hi, Lisa, how you doing? How you doing? Lisa, what's the problem here? Quote, that pencil dick. Who are you referring to? Brian. Brian who? I ask innocently. She goes, Wassman. What are you talking about? That's my boyfriend. Was my boyfriend. What? We broke up last night. He has no sense of humor. And so I see Brian about 2 weeks later. I said, you mess with me, I mess with you. Okay. So that's not the end of the story, though. I promised, by the way, Brittany, I'd be done within an hour. Okay, so I didn't say how much within an hour. Okay, so what happens is that the next, it's in the newspaper, people are talking about this thing. So what happens is I have the t-shirts made, and the next thing I do is I go and I have a bunch of coffee cups made. This is my coffee cup, if you will, and it's kind of dated, but it was my mug shot. And so I had these things, and I would give them away. I sent one up to the Barrow Police Department because the cops up in Barrow and I got along pretty well, tend to represent them a lot. Anyway. And I remember a friend of mine, Mike Donovan, sent me an email and said, Bill, we've started a fund for you, and when we raise enough money for postage, we're going to mail it. And then he also told me that he liked the coffee cups. It stood out real well at 100 yards. Okay, so then the next thing I did is I had the bumper stickers made, which you saw up there behind me just a minute ago, the Free Willy bumper stickers. Now, what's interesting about the bumper stickers, and I brought some with me here tonight, is that I had one state trooper, a gentleman named Gary Tellep, who was a state trooper. And I like Gary. He was a good guy, and a retired trooper now. Gary contacted me. He said, can I have about 20 of those, please? And I said, why? Well, you don't want to really ask. But it turns out I learned later on that, Dan, there was one state trooper car that had bumper stickers all over it, had bumper stickers all over this one state trooper, Brian's locker, his desk, and every time he took them off, they'd show up again. I made care to have these things made out of vinyl, if you will, so you couldn't tear them. And these things just kept going. We've been in like our 5th printing now of bumper stickers, which, By the way, I do want to point out to you, they are a collector's item. And tonight I took the liberty of placing 5 of my business cards under seats out there. This is a true statement. And you guys can all stand up right now or maybe wait till the end of the show and look under your seat, and 5 of you folks are going to get a collector's item, one of my bumper stickers, if you look me up after the show, right? But seriously, they're out there. And there's also one up in the handicap section up there because I want to treat everybody equally, recognize I'm disabled now too. Okay, so eventually what happens is that they decide they're going to dismiss the case. Teresa Foster was a DA, comes out with a news release, says, we're going to dismiss the case, and Daryl Lewis, if you folks remember Daryl, does it on TV, and he goes, well, Ms. Foster, why are you dismissing? Well, Mr. Satterberg, he really hasn't done anything wrong. He just exercised poor judgment. He doesn't have any prior criminal history. They never did find my fish violations, and had 2 of them. And so we're going to dismiss. Well, that really upset me. So I said, Daryl, equal time, please. You know, I have a right to rebut this thing. So he goes, okay, fine. So we go on television the next day, and I'm standing there in my T-shirt. I've got a bunch of these mugs stepped up and a bunch of bumper stickers on the wall behind me. And the first thing he says to me is, he says, Mr. Satterberg, how do you feel about this case being dismissed? I said, you know, America's a free country, and I have a right to prove myself innocent. Now, that's not really the standard, all you future jurors. Just keep that in mind. It's the other way around. And he said, anything else that you regret? And I said, well, yeah. And the camera pulled back, and they show the bumper stickers and the cups and my shirts. I said, folks, you better come on down. The sale starts tomorrow. I'm doing my best Ralph Seekins imitation. Right here. Okay. Now we're almost done. We're almost done. Well, the case is dismissed, but at that point, I want my pink thing back. And I always refer to it as my little pink thing. I never once called it a prohibited weapon. I never once called it anything except my little pink thing. And so what developed there was that eventually I got in touch with Greg Rankus, who was the Attorney General at the time under Murkowski, the male one, not the female one. And that was his daughter to the other one. And I said, hey, Greg, I want my little pink thing back. No, we're not going to return it. I want my little pink thing. We exchanged letters for about a year, actually. And finally, I wrote a letter, and I said, okay, here's the deal. If you give my little pink thing back to me, I promise you that no human hands will ever fondle it again. But if you don't give it back to me, I'm going to tell you that the lawsuit, a copy of which is attached as Appendix A, will be filed against the state of Alaska. Not that I'm into suing people, of course. And it said, on or about April 8th, 2002, at or near Fairbanks, Alaska, in the 4th Judicial District, Trooper Brian Wassman seized Satterberg's little pink thing and has held on to it tightly ever since. Satterberg demands the complete and full and immediate release of his little pink thing. Now, the final joke was on me. My secretary at the time, Marty, filed the lawsuit. So if you folks, and I looked it up today, I had to double check. If you go and you take a look into mid-July of 2003, July of 2003, you will see me demanding the complete and full release of my little pink thing. And I finally did get it back. Bye-bye.
Well, we opened with burlesque and we ended with the little pink thing. So don't say you didn't have any fun tonight. All right, well, thank you so much for being the greatest audience we could possibly ask for. Our next show is March 1st. We'll definitely be in touch if you turn to Story tonight. We'd love to hear more stories. We don't have a show without you, so send us your stories. I do want to take a minute to thank our executive board, which is the only reason that this show runs, and we put in a lot of time. So if I could invite out to the stage, depending if they're out front, but so I have Ryan, happy Nutcrackin' season, Peterson. Chris needs to get his passport application in ASAP, Zwolinski. Robin walks uphill in the snow both ways to Dark Winter Nights meetings. And Rob, we miss you, Prince, who's not here tonight. All right, and now I'd like to invite back up one last time for a final bow all of our amazing storytellers, Jamy May Wagner, Craig Compeau, Peggy Sullivan, Mike Spitzer, Patty Christian, and Bill Satterberg. Thank you, guys. Always remember, these are the stories we tell up here in Alaska on Dark Winter Nights. Good night.